It's a shootout crusher for the Utah Hockey Club. 5-4 to the Minnesota Wild. Tom Callahan, Robyn, Leano. We're going to go back over the game. Good news, bad news, a little bit of both coming your way here on the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast.
You are Locked On Utah Hockey Club, your daily podcast on the Utah Hockey Club, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us and making your absolute first listen every single day when it comes to the Utah Hockey Club. Robyn and I love talking hockey. We love talking about the Utah Hockey Club, and we appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much. If you're new to the show, welcome. If you're a long-timer or a first-timer, we appreciate you no matter what. So thanks for being here. I am former NHL voice Tom Callahan, along with longtime team analyst Robyn Leano. And Robyn, we're breaking down the Minnesota Wild. I'm calling it a shootout crusher. That game was soul-crushing in so many ways to me, watching it just unfold. So many things. I'll just kind of lay out there. There were preventable mistakes. There were turnovers, bad passes, blind passes, blown coverages, all of these things that went wrong for Utah Hockey Club tonight. Yet they still had a chance to win it. They still had a lead late. They still pushed it to overtime. It just didn't happen tonight. But so it's good news and bad news for me, but let's get your thoughts on the game.
I think you're right. I feel like it definitely is a crusher. There were a lot of mistakes made in this game. And I think a lot of it, I think you can start off with looking at, and it's kind of, maybe you can use a similar term what you used in the past, where it was like almost taking a nap, where they allowed Minnesota to score two unanswered goals early on that Utah got an early lead. They were feeling good. Minnesota scores two in a row. All of a sudden, now that, as we talked about it, Utah is now on the other side. They keep coming back, but the issue is, at that point, Minnesota has the momentum. Then they keep going, and multiples coming in, and that's how we get to this level of a high scoring game. Ended up being 5-4 in a shootout. Come on.
It's funny because I thought to myself at one point, this was early second period, I remember distinctly thinking to myself, this doesn't feel like a 1-0 game. Certainly not a game Utah should be winning 1-0. But they were, because Vejmelka was giving them fantastic saves and was playing well and bailing them out. And so early in the second, when I thought to myself, this doesn't feel like a 1-0 game. So I just glanced at some of the stats, and the very first one that jumped out at me was shots on goal. Now, shots on goal is not always an indicator of how a game is going, but in this case, I think it was. It was 25-10 in favor of Minnesota, and it was 1-0 Utah at that point. And right after I checked that, Robyn, I'm not kidding you, boom, 1-2, and it was 2-1 Minnesota. Minnesota, this is a good hockey team. They're a complete hockey team, and the thing about them is they're relentless. They stick to the system. They don't abandon it when they're down 1-0 and have 25 shots and haven't scored yet. They don't get frustrated.
No, they don't.
Just keep picking away.
Yeah, and you're right. I feel like that shows. It shows that they don't freak out on really anything. And example, when Clayton Keller ties it at first, what happens? Minnesota scores a minute later. Minnesota scores and gets it back to a 4-3 game.
It was actually 57 seconds later, if you want to split hairs. Yeah.
Yes.
And that was coming off a power play, too. That was a power play goal from Keller. So special teams, yay. But then that's why shifts after goals are so important. You say it, I say it. We talk about it all the time. It's important for both teams because you can either have pushback from the team that just got scored on, or you can step on the team you just scored on and do more damage.
Yeah, and I think the thing is Utah allowed Minnesota just to make that easy answer. Like, you don't want that. You just don't let that easy of an answer happen. You're on home ice. You're supposed to make the momentum swing back in your direction.
Not only that, what was disappointing for me, and I saw Sergachev get frustrated tonight. And there were just, as I said, there were bad passes, blind passes, missed coverages, guys not paying attention. It's a classic definition of a Tom nap, right?
Right.
I mean, it was bad, but I'm starting to see a pattern of this with Sergachev, and it's funny that he's getting frustrated with himself for playing the way he just plays. So my message to Sergachev would be, if I were a coach, hey, you don't like what you're doing, but you do it all the time, so something needs to change. And if you're going to step up and wear the number one defenseman pants, you need to eliminate these things from your game. They can be coached out of the game. You can eliminate mistakes, because I feel like a lot of the mistakes he makes and the other guys make are coachable and able to be eliminated. They can be overcome. They can be corrected. However, right now, Utah, the reason they're not winning games they should win, and they should have beat Minnesota tonight, is because they're making these mistakes, and they're making them over and over and over. And I just keep waiting for maturity to kick in, or learning, or something. And I'm not seeing it right now. And that worries me. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
does the Leopard ever change his spots?
You're right, and to me, I think that's a huge point, is seeing that, and the amount of times that those kind of plays either a mismatch and like your Kirill Kaprizov or Rossi or whoever it might be from Minnesota just skates right on by you, either A or B, just make, like, if you're trying to make a breakout and you make a terrible pass decision, and puck's going back the other way. You're right. Something needs to change.
It's and I mean, just he's not the only one. Sergachev's easy
right.
to point out because he's the big
supposed
guy.
to be he's supposed to be number one, and I mean, the contract on him, the contract dollar is like at least based off average annual value, is a pretty hefty amount. Highest paid defenseman on the team.
Yeah. And that's the guy you need to look to. Robyn, I actually forgot to tell everybody that the show today is sponsored by FanDuel. So that was my mistake, but I want to get that out there. Now you can get started this season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So obviously you and I have already gotten started on going on things here. I'll tell you what I didn't have, though, in my anywhere imagination. I did not have Utah going back and forth like this with Minnesota. I probably would have picked an under on this game, not an over.
Right.
But the offense was there, which is encouraging. And so I said it was good news, bad news, right? But it's nice to see him putting pucks in the net.
I will give them that level of credit, is because the November version of the Utah Hockey Club, after if Minnesota went up 2-1 after that, back to back within pretty quickly, it would have been Utah would have gone into a shell, and it would have gotten ugly. It would have ended up being like, instead of a 5-4 shootout loss, it would have been like a 5-2 regulation loss.
Yeah. And they didn't. They fought back. And I mean, we look back at the scoring summary. Hey, by the way, how about Kevin Stenlund? We haven't mentioned this. Scored the first goal of the game. He's got goals in 3 straight. This guy's a monster.
I know. I saw the moment I saw Kevin Stenlund score again, I instantly thought of you, Tom, and I was like, "Oh, we're going to talk about Kevin Stenlund again, aren't we?"
Of course we are. I love it. This guy's been such a great acquisition. He's good on both sides of the puck, with and without the puck. And the fact that he's scoring right now is just fantastic. And you know what? His game is simple. He's not trying to do too much, which I think would be a great example for everybody else to learn from. He's just simply playing hard, pucks to the net. He's bearing down on his faceoffs and winning his draws. I just think he's doing a great job right now. So to see him get rewarded with the offense is pretty cool.
It is, and I feel like as we've talked about previously, right? When it comes to the difference of someone who's a fourth liner, that's like his primary job is taking those has been taking those face offs.
Right.
Your face off specialist. That's what you're going to do. And we talked about what he's done earlier on the season, where like in like an overtime period where you give him give him a much needed face off win, and then go to the bench, give it to somebody else. But at this point, with him firing up, you don't even need to do that. You can keep him on if you want. He's feeling good everywhere.
Yeah. And who was out there for the first face-off of overtime and won it? Kevin Stenlund. And he wins the draw, heads to the bench, job done. Yeah, maybe they should have kept him out there. He's a hot hand. Maybe he would have scored an OT winner tonight. But yeah, it's just great to see. And you know what the best part is, Robyn? It's fun for us as like we are just like everybody else. We're observers of what happens, and we just process it on whatever level we see it at, and then we regurgitate stuff and we talk to our listeners and our viewers about what we think. But it's nice when you are right. It's nice when you're able to do that. And I think more often than not, we are fairly keen observers of the situation. So it's nice to be able to look back over your shoulder and say, yes, we pointed this out a couple of days ago. And, everybody who saw it, all of a sudden you see him score again. Maybe now you're paying attention. You're watching him a little bit more.
And I mean, I sure hope so. I feel like maybe, maybe the next, next warm up, a lot more, maybe some of those kids along the boards are going to give Kevin Stenlund a little more love because of our praise.
There you go. Who knows? I mean, maybe, hey, if you are listening to this on your way to or your way from a game or your way to or your way from maybe your kid's hockey practice or just on your way to work, on your way home, on your way to school, it's just, that's why we do this, is so that we can have this conversation with you and we really enjoy it. So, and we always welcome your comments as well. So we hope everybody is having a good time with it. All right, Robyn, I know you want to talk about Clayton Keller. So I want to do that. And then I'm going to kind of break it down as a good news, bad news here on the show as well. So stick around. We're going to talk about the offensive firepower from the captain in just a moment. And today's show is brought to you in part by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more right there on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Oh, Captain, my captain, Clayton Keller, 2 goals. Man, one of them was just a straight up snipe to the glove side. I like it. I like to see him getting rewarded. It's nice to see. And you know what, Robyn, here's another thing we talked about. Did we not talk about getting left off Team USA? Yeah, maybe being a little motivation.
I mean, it definitely feels like that, right? And I feel like it's good to see one, like, the captain putting out the kind of production that I feel like is expected from the coach, and I think he probably expects from the rest of the team. He knows what the team is capable of, and he knows, all right, we need to score. We are a team that should be capable of this, and he's gone out and showing that, and he does it in some great ways too, right? He just continues to show why he's not only the captain, but be the best, one of the best players on this club.
And just looking at a stat line, 2 goals, but a -2, which is disappointing. I mean, that you want to clean up for sure. But 4 shots, 2 attempts blocked, 3 missed shots. So really, in all, 9 times he tried to put the puck at the net tonight. And I mean, that just says a lot about, what Clayton Keller is doing right now. He is trying to lead by example. He is trying to will pucks into the net. And twice he found the twine. So I think that one of the ways Utah is going to get better is for the offense to wake back up. We said coming into the year, Robyn, scoring goals was never a problem for this team. But for the first couple of months of the season, it kind of has been, hasn't it?
It was, there was like after the inaugural 4-game honeymoon, as I'll call it, everyone was on the high of, oh, this team is doing so well. Utah went on this massive scoring slump. They couldn't, the offense just looked dead. There were a couple players like Clayton, Keller, who would constantly put out still a high level of production, but outside of him, wasn't really much. But I feel like now things are picking up. Keller's still doing what he's doing. And they're getting a little bit more confident. And I feel like, I think even in watching this game, I feel like players are smarter in knowing that they have to, as you mentioned, like filter pucks to the net, take the shot when they can. And I'm seeing more of that, although at the same time, it's maybe not enough quite yet. I see a lot of times in which there might be a little too much skating around, a little too much looking for the perfect spot. Sometimes you can't find the perfect spot. You just got to take the shot. Take the shot and maybe hope you got a guy in front who's going to take the rebound.
Get selfish. I mean, there was times, especially early on, we saw them pass out of prime scoring opportunities.
Yep.
They would defer and try to pass, and the pass either wouldn't connect, it would get defended, or goaltender could make a save. But too much can go wrong on a pass. Shoot the puck. And I think we're finally seeing them do that a little bit more now. Not exclusively, mind you. I would still like to see more of it because, and I'll go back again just to look at the sheet and tell you that shots on goal tonight, 38 for Minnesota, 25 for Utah. I want to see Utah get to 30 shots on average on a night. I want 10 a period. I'm not asking for the world here, 10 a period. I'm not asking for 20. But when you give up 17 in the first, 10 in the second, you're lucky when you're not behind the 8 ball and the game is tied, or you're 1 goal out, or you're 1 goal up. There's a little bit of puck luck involved in that. But over time, those numbers will not favor you.
I mean, and like I said earlier in this show, like, Utah's, and again, there still was a level of skill involved because they actually scored, but still in much of the sense because of how the team was in the past. They're lucky this game wasn't 5-2 rather than 5-4 in a shootout.
Yeah, and boy, how about Valley Mackey's goal, huh? That was
nice
fun.
Too. That was fun. I feel like, again, like I said, there's, shots like those, and you see those, it shows that they're learning and being capable. I'll even say this: it wasn't the goal, but it was it looked nice to taking the shot. I think odd man rush at the end of the game, right? Stretch pass, odd man rush. I'm trying to think who was the one who took this. I think it was Cooley that took the shot. They wanted that. They wanted that win so bad. And I'll give him credit for that. I'll give him credit for recognizing the open spot, that there was only one guy back. You can easily take advantage of a 2-on-1 situation, and they almost did. They beat the defense too. They just didn't beat the goalie.
Yep. Well, and that's a whole nother thing. I was thinking about that while we were kind of talking about the game tonight. I was thinking about the shootout. I'm like, man, does anybody ever score in shootouts anymore? I feel like it's 1 goal in 3 rounds, and whoever scores that 1 goal is going to win. It's kind of crazy. Goalies are just so good. They're so big. They, are so adept at covering angles and their lateral movement and everything. And everybody's just coached so well. The position's so refined. You really have to make a perfect shot sometimes to beat a goaltender.
Yeah, and sometimes some of them even do it's like almost like a fake trick shot that people can get creative and get, quote, cute. Does it work all the time? Absolutely not. It's like, especially in the NHL, goalies can read, especially if it's slow enough. But I mean, sometimes it works because it's enough of a trick. You have to get as creative as you can get. That's what I'm saying.
Yes. Or you really have to pick your spot. So, yeah, it's something. So, all right, Robyn, I have good news and bad news. So you know what, we might as well. Are you a good news first or a bad news first person? If somebody says I have good news and bad news, which do you want to hear first?
Oh God, that's a good question. I feel like I'm the kind of that I like to take the bad news first because I think I hear it, might not feeling great, but the good news might uplift it and my own me overshadow. Like, oh, you know what? There was a silver lining there.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'm the same way. Take the bad news first, get it out of the way, and then uplift myself, as opposed to hear the good news, be feeling all good about it, and then the bad news negates the good news, and then you just leave, kind of like. "Arr." So,
Yeah,
all right. Well, I'll go with the bad news first. Then we'll
and
do that.
we'll do that right after this. And today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. If you love sports, you're going to love Prize Picks, the best place to turn your sports knowledge into real money. Whether it's hockey, football, or any of your favorite sports, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in on the action. And here's why you need to get started today. You can win up to 200 times your money on Prize Picks. Get $50 instantly when you place your first $5 lineup. No need to win. The $50 is guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers fun weekly promotions like Taco Tuesday, where select player projections are discounted up to 25%. I've been using Prize Picks for a while now, and I'll even do it in a lot of different things. I've done a lot of hockey on my lineup. I decide, hey, is Mikhail Sergachev going to get over 25 minutes on ice, or is Clayton Keller going to get more than 2.5 shots on goal, or whatever it might be. You could do a lot of those things, and it's really simple to set a lineup and have some fun doing it. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly. Prize Picks, run your game.
All right, good news, bad news. Robyn, you said you wanted the bad news first.
Let's hear it.
The bad news is the defense isn't good enough.
Nope.
It's just not. And again, every time we talk about the defense, we talk about injuries. Can't help those. They happen to everybody. We talk about, various guys in and out of the lineup. We talk about, because of the injuries, different playing partners, having to bring people in. The other thing too tonight, who was it that got hurt defensively? Bortuzzo only played about 7 minutes tonight, got hurt, did not return, might have another injury on defense to deal with, Robyn.
Yeah.
That's the bad news. And they said early would not return. So, and obviously did not, but another one that it's just the bad news continues to pile up for the defense right now. And
it feels
just
like
terrible.
It feels like they're cursed or something. And this is more of like a in a slightly joking manner, but like on like the ride up to Salt Lake City from Arizona, did they run over something, or that's supposed to be that dropped a curse onto them, or what was it? Like it's just insane how many injuries to this blue line we've seen in a span of 2 months, 2.5 months.
If there were any scorpions or black widows or tarantulas that might have made the trip from the desert up to Utah, the weather would have killed them by now. However, apparently, one bug that did not die and somehow got packed in the gear was the injury bug. And I don't understand it. It's like they need to do a fumigation or an exorcism or something in that locker room. It just continues. And I always worry when a guy doesn't come back into a game. Now, look, I know you're being precautionary, but here's the reality of it. So let's take a look at the schedule, shall we? So this was the only home game of the week. You just came back from Philly. Now you're heading out. You're going to Colorado and then to San Jose. I don't think Bortuzzo makes that trip. And I don't even know what the injury is. I don't know the severity of it. But if he doesn't return in a game on Tuesday, I don't think he's playing on Thursday. And if he's not playing on Thursday, then he's probably not playing on Saturday when it's a 2-game road swing. So the earliest we might see him again is next week, Wednesday, the 18th. So now you got 2 games. In the meantime, you need to fill in with yet another defenseman. it's starting to get a little thin back there. And that's where the mistakes come in and where they're magnified. When Kesselring blows a coverage or Sergachev makes a bad pass or Cole falls down, I don't know, or Valley Mackey or Mata makes, they're overcommitted or they make a bad play. Although I will say I like those two together. I do like that deep pair. But it just, everybody's having brain farts is the best way I can put it out there. And then you lose Bortuzzo, and now what?
And I think here's another gross reality of this too is who this also hurts tremendously, for Tucson Roadrunners, because now they're dealing with their own situation. Is they're losing all their defense getting called up. Who do they have left?
They're gonna have an East Coast League decor. That's really what it's gonna come down to. They have to pull from the AA level, the East Coast League. So it's tough. It's really tough. And the Utah Hockey Club is going to deal with more of that. So that's a piece of bad news there. So let's spin it the other way with some good news. I don't think the special teams has been that bad lately. I think it's improving. And I think that's important to point out. You get 2 power play goals tonight, both by Keller. The penalty kill is doing its job. And I was banging on special teams early and talking about how important it is, because it can win you hockey games. Tonight, it kept them in a hockey game and got them a point.
Yeah. Plus, I will also say too, I think in that similar fashion is, although there were a couple penalties in there, still not as bad as, earlier on this season. As I mentioned, the most penalized team in the league, we didn't see that. Again, we saw some, but nowhere near as much as previously. So that's also a good step.
Yeah, when you only take 2 penalties on a night, you're having a pretty good night. So I don't have really too much of an issue with that. And really, I mean, that should be an NHL game. It should be 2 or 3 power plays. And some nights it's a parade to the box. Early on in the season, I think it was. And as you mentioned, Robyn, just to bring up brain farts again, a lot of it was those dumb penalties. Too many men on the ice, Robyn. I know that's your favorite.
It's unbelievable. I feel like I have referred to it as the dumbest penalty you can take.
It's not paying attention and not being certain of what's going on. You have to mark your man. You have to know what line's going on. And if you don't know what line's going on, ask. Find out.
Yeah.
Who's up? Is it us? Is it them? Who is it?
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes maybe at the very least too is communication between whether it's the coach yelling it in your ear, you got your line mates saying, hey, line two, whatever you call your line, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you do, that level of communication will go a long way.
Communication is key. Absolutely. And they could use a little more of it, but again, so that was how they started the year. Now it seems to be improving. So kudos. Special teams, good news. Also, I think Veg Milk is good news. I mean, a lot of shots tonight. And yeah, you give up 4, that hurts, and then you lose in a shootout. But he's been really, really solid for having as much weight on him. And I'll tell you what, Stauber doesn't look too bad in the chances he's been getting in the net either. So that makes me feel pretty good about where this team could potentially be heading in net. Of course, Connor Ingram's injury continues to be, bad news. You hope that Ingram's back sooner than later. But in the meantime, it's nice to see that you don't have to run Veggie till he dies. You can throw Stauber in there and feel confident that you have a chance to come out with a win because he gives you quality saves on any given night.
It's giving you a little bit of it's keeping that stability in between the pipes, and that's what you want. And I feel like that. And again, Stauber has been doing great on it, and Veggie's been doing great on it. And I think, and as to me, what I feel like is an improvement. We've talked about. I mean, you've talked about the taking a look at earlier on the season. There, either whether it's combined or individual goalie save percentage for Utah, and it was below bad. It wasn't good. And I mean, to me, I think it seems like it's been a heavy improvement over that part of the season.
Well, and I mean, you feel like it had to get better, right? I mean, the guy you
Had to.
faced tonight, Philip Gustafson, has the highest save percentage in the league. So, he's getting the job done for him. And save percentage, I think, is a very good indicator. Goaltenders can play on bad teams, have a high goals against, still have a high save percentage if they're facing a lot of shots in a night. And I think that makes a difference. So, what's nice, though, is after I remember, and I want to say it was Ingram at the time, but Veg wasn't much higher, was like 60th in the league on
Yeah.
save percentage. Now, as of tonight, and following the game against Minnesota, Veg's save percentage is still 917. That is sixth best in the NHL.
And that's kind of also right. You've talked about, that's kind of like around that area of what you want to be, right? You want to be above that level, to be good. And he's, of course, there, and it shows, as you said, sixth best in the National Hockey League. That's nice to have. It is, and I feel like it's huge. We talked about how important every year this has been for Veggie, and he's taking full advantage of that, as we discussed.
Yeah, and I feel like it's kind of necessary, unfortunately, that you have to have that. You have to have a goalie with those numbers, and that's just, and his 2.35 goals against is fifth. So he's giving you the performances you need right now. And Utah Hockey Club needs to find a way to not squander those performances. They need to, but at the end of the day, Robyn, to me, it just comes back to defense. If they could ratchet it down defensively now, if they are going to start scoring goals, if special teams is going to provide, just keep pucks out of your net. Help your goalie.
That it feels like that's just and again, it's not that you're going to expect perfect of all the other aspects for the rest of the season, but it does very well seem that the only glaring major hole is that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
In the defense, in the blue line. And as you mentioned, yes, it's an injured team. It's extremely broken, but it's still the National Hockey League. There still is a high level of expectation.
Yes, absolutely, man. I really just want to see this team do well. And despite all the injuries, I think they're still playing a pretty good brand of hockey. And again, the mistakes are coachable and correctable. So hopefully they're able to eliminate those from the game and start putting more games in the win column. That's what I want.
Let's hope so, because the two wins over the weekend felt good. And getting a point, again, still, even though this very well should have been a winnable game based off of how things went, but or could have gone, I'll still take the point.
Yes.
So
yes, point's good. Against Minnesota, I think a point is good. That's a very good hockey team.
It is. Any final thoughts before we close things off?
Nope, just looking forward to this little 2-game road swing they got coming up here. They should be able to beat your San Jose Sharks, and Colorado will be an excellent test for them. I'm curious who's coming up defensively for them. What are they going to do? So that's something we're going to keep an eye on here. And you can follow us on the socials. When we know, you'll know. And we'll try to keep putting that out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Once again, thanks everyone for tuning into this episode. We hope you guys all like what you heard. If you did, don't forget to leave a review, like, comment, subscribe if you have yet to already. We are available everywhere you get your shows, including on YouTube. If you do subscribe on YouTube, hit the notification bell to get notified every single time a new episode drops, so you never have to miss the moment we drop it, so you guys can tune in right away. Really, it's gonna be should be a fun time. Don't forget to interact with us on social media. We are on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads at LO_NHL Utah, and also on Blue Sky at Locked On Utah Hockey. I'm personally at Robyn_Leano on X and at Robyn Ice Time on Blue Sky. Tom, where can they find you?
I am at Callahan on air on Twitter. I just don't want to call it X ever. So on Twitter at Callahan on air, I still tweet. And then Blue Sky, I am at Tom Talks, and Robyn and I are both on the main server.
Yep, you can interact with us, ask us any question, DM us, whatever. We'll answer right back, or on a future episode of the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. Well, thanks again to everyone for listening to this episode. We'll see you guys next time.